Hey, aloha everybody. Michelle Melendez with blossominnerwellness.com and standtogetherhawaii.com. And this is also on the Voice of Kona Radio, 100.5 FM. Mahalo so much for listening on the islands, and also if you're watching on YouTube or another channel. Much mahalo. This is John J. Singleton from Ace of Coins again that I get to interview, and what he's about to share with you guys is going to blow your minds. So you can always go to aceofcoins.com to learn more about him. If your business needs to lower the taxes or eliminate them lawfully, this is the guy to go to. So John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it.
So we're going to be talking about family court, and I'm just going to let you take it away.
Okay. Well, if you think the IRS is bad, you're going to think it's your best friend when you find out what's going on in family court. So the divorce rate is 50% in most markets. And 80% of those are initiated by women. I'm not faulting them. I'm just saying that's the number. And they're being rewarded for this because what's happening is they're countermanding the husband's authority and his property rights. I'm not saying women don't have property rights and things like that. Just bear with me because statistically, this is what's happening. So in a divorce, the court is intruding upon the family's use of money and resources. And it's reallocating that for some arbitrary standard known as equitable distribution or some garbage like that. That is not how families operate, not 50-50. That doesn't work that way. Families operate in a very complex way. You'll probably never figure out who has what percent of what because there isn't such a thing. In a family, it's community property. It's supposed to be that way. Governments are not supposed to be that way. Entire economic systems are not supposed to be that way. It's not long-term, it's not sustainable. But in the family, it's very unique and special. And the arrangement of the use of money, the income from either the husband and or the husband and wife, and the allocation or use of property, like the chattels in the household, what kind of furniture is going to be purchased and how it's going to be used and when it's going to be replaced, the vehicles that the family uses, the type of fuel and energy the family uses, and this sort of thing, the temperature and all this. All that is decided in a very complex way using the intellectual abilities of the husband and wife, mother and father, if there's children. And so the court comes in there and says, no, it's going to be this way from now on. We think it's equitable, and completely disregards what's known as legally the balance of the equities, okay? What the heck is that? Well, the balance of the equities is the consideration of what's already been what's being done. Mm-hmm. So the marital arrangements that I just described are not in writing, but they don't have to be. It's nobody's business but your own, even if you ask for divorce. So when someone files for divorce, no problem there. Okay, you file for divorce, unfortunately. You're asking the court to announce to the public the dissolution of a marriage. That's fine. This is known as equitable relief. That's very limited jurisdiction. That means the court can order something to be done or not done. It cannot order the payment of money or the reallocation of property, and it cannot do so under penalty of incarceration.
Wow.
This is what's going on. So when I started looking at this last year, I was thinking, well, how is the court able to order someone to pay money when there's no underlying debt? You have a property right to decide what to do with your paycheck and to decide how, when you're going to replace your son's clothing, or when he gets older, when he outgrows his shoes, you and your wife decide, when to do it. Mm-hmm. You can't be compelled to sell your house. And that's what they're tricked into. They hire an attorney and the attorney says, yeah, you have to do it. And you don't. You don't have to sell your house and give half the equity to the other party. And by the way, husband and wife are not adverse parties. There cannot be an adverse party in a marriage. The court can be used to declare the dissolution of the marriage, but there's no plaintiff and defendant.
I love this.
This is where we start. Now, check this out. Here's your standard thing. This is not what always happens, but I've got cases right now where the wife files divorce petition. Immediately, the court seeks discovery, or the attorneys seek discovery of property so that it can be taken through a levy and given to the other party in real time, not after the whole thing's done. And there's no underlying debt. So here's a case that's happening, and this is part of the argument. So the husband's paycheck is the only paycheck that funds the whole thing. it pays for the whole party. That's true in most cases. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
So in this particular case, the guy's paycheck, the husband's paycheck, is being used to pay the attorney fees for the wife, and he's having to argue the case while he's paying the other party's legal
Attorney
fees.
fees.
So he's fighting his own money.
Oh my gosh.
You understand? Listen, guys, this is why
So how is it supposed to go? Because I completely agree with this. Like
this is what's
the whole,
happening.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm gonna tell
the
you the
whole,
legal, I'm gonna tell you the legal thing of what's going on here, so you can put it some words on it.
okay.
All right, so let me describe for you what's happening. So when I looked at this, I was like, wait a minute, you can't allocate someone's property rights in this way. What's the cause for it? You just asked the court to declare the dissolution of the marriage. You didn't ask them to overhaul your entire financial system. How do they get
Exactly.
to do that?
Exactly.
Did you know that your court, your judge, has a duty to you, plaintiff or defendant, to preserve the status quo? And if you have a contract where another party owes money and he doesn't pay, well, the judge can order a judgment for a dollar amount, but that's where it ends. You can go levy the property and take it, but you have to do that. The judge can't tell the other party, the defendant, hey, if you don't pay this, you're going to jail. That's known as a debtor's prison. And you can't get around it by saying,
Gosh.
oh, it's just contempt. No, it's not.
Yeah.
There's an underlying debt there, but even then, you can't impose criminal penalties, incarceration for non-payment. You guys know this on credit card debt, right?
Yep.
All right. So when I looked at this, I was like, well, what the heck? How are they doing this for property? They can't do it. There's no jurisdiction for this. It's a petition for divorce, equitable relief. There's no statute in the divorce statutes that impose a debt obligation on either party, if there even is parties or not. There's no plaintiff
Yeah.
and defendant, but let's just say there's no statute that creates a debt obligation, first of all. In a divorce petition, no one alleges a debt obligation, or if he does, there's no cognizance. The court doesn't have the jurisdiction. So as I looked at this further, and I got to a point in a case where I told my client, I said, you tell that judge that he doesn't have the right to make you sell your house. And the way you know that he doesn't have the right, this is how I like to make legal arguments, is that he doesn't have the right to make someone buy it. Think
Well,
about this,
yeah,
guys. Come
but
on, I don't have to know the law. I don't have to know the statutes to understand that if the judge tells me you have to sell your house or I'm going to put you in jail, say,
he,
okay, that's fine. But
no.
explain to me how you're going to require someone to buy my house.
And also explain to me where in the Constitution does it says you have the right to do that?
This
Because
is
they have no
not
right.
about the Constitution.
But the thing is these
No,
judges are going
no.
beyond
No, it's
everything
not
that
about
they've been
they're
saying
not
for a very
operating under
long
the
time.
Constitution. None of this has to do with the US Constitution. Just totally forget that.
No, I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, and I agree with that.
I
And
haven't,
what people need to
right.
understand is that these courts have been going beyond
Yeah, they just
their
do whatever they want.
authority for a very, very long time.
So think about this. So the judge said, the judge says, sell your house or give me the right to sell your house because he doesn't have it. And if you don't give me the right, I'm going to put you in jail for contempt. Okay, well, that tells me that you don't have the authority. So you threatening me with violence doesn't give you more authority. Moreover,
Exactly.
you can't require someone to lend me money on my house. So you can't require me to sell my house because I'm not responsible for someone choosing to buy my house. Therefore, you can't even hold me in contempt for that. So guess what? I'm not going to do it. So I had my client tell him, stick it up your ass. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving you my money. You don't have the right to reallocate my resources in a way that's arbitrary, that you don't have any accountability to any member of my family. Only I do. So you can't come and bulldoze my family and my property rights when you have no accountability to the manner in which I've chosen to care for my family. All right.
So wait. What did the judge say? What did the judge say when he said that?
He says, I'm going to hold you in contempt. Yeah, they are so
Wow.
out of it. They think this is okay.
Yeah.
So this is my point. So this is what I discovered. So the truth came out. The judge is operating as the receiver. You have to understand.
Wow.
If you ask the government for protection from creditors, the government will say, okay, if you file a bankruptcy petition, okay, or if you file a petition, a voluntary petition for receivership, let's say you're a business owner and you just can't pay your bills. So you can ask the state to protect you. You don't have to file federal bankruptcy. You can file a petition for receivership in the state. And the state has a body of statutes that deals with receivership. What is that? Receivership means someone else who's a neutral party takes ownership rights from you. And if it's voluntary, you voluntarily give it to him. So you're the debtor and you ask the court for protection. Help me. The court says, okay, we're appointing a receiver, and the receiver is going to liquidate your property and pay the creditors in the order it deems necessary. Let's see all your contracts. So all your contracts, your receivables are allocated to pay the creditors. The creditors come in and show you their credit agreements with you. Well, they show the receiver, okay? That's great. This is great for business. For business. And don't tell me that you can call a marriage an economic partnership and make it fall into that category, because I'm going to get to that in a second. All right. So this is good for business. Now, there's something called an involuntary receivership, where the business owner doesn't want to face reality, and there's enough creditors that go to the court and file a petition to appoint a receiver for an involuntary receivership. That's also necessary in our society. We have a feudal system, I mean, but it helps to clean things up, okay? You have to make the creditor whole. You really do, to the best of your ability, okay? So we need these things. Now, there's underlying debt. There's a debtor. There's a debtor in possession. There are financial obligations. There are credit agreements. There are secured interests. There are perfected security interests. There's collateral. There are creditors, okay? But in a marriage, no such thing. But what they're doing is, so the family court is appointing a receiver. Now, in this particular case, the judge was acting as receiver to a point where it was revealed he didn't have any authority, because he couldn't make my client do the thing he wanted. And so the judge got frustrated and put him in jail for a week.
Which is unlawful to do.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
There's an issue of misconduct. And there's a tort claim against this judge now because he's waived immunity. You waive immunity when you do shit like that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
There's a remedy. It's ugly, but there's a remedy. So anyways, the truth came out. He appointed a receiver. So what that tells me is he was the receiver. He just didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so if you appoint a receivership in a petition for divorce, dissolution of marriage, what's that? If I sue somebody for breach of contract, can I also sue him for nuisance because he doesn't cut his grass in the same?
Oh,
no, I'm suing him for breach of contract. So I come to the court and I say, Judge, I want a remedy for breach of contract. Oh, and by the way, the guy doesn't cut his grass on Saturday. Could you do something about that too? No. The judge is going to say, no, I can only do what you asked me to do. I can't do this other thing on the side. So if you ask the court to declare the dissolution of a marriage, that's equitable relief. That's declaratory judgment, period. You don't get to reallocate people's property because he didn't ask you for that. And there are no creditors to make whole. It's just a marriage, you know?
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they're doing. So they appoint a receiver. So we come into, now we send discovery. We file a security agreement. Now my client happens to be the only source of money for the whole game, right? For the whole party. He's paying for the whole party. He's having to fight his own money. So we filed a security agreement against the $16 million they've taken from him.
Wow.
Who's the debtor now?
Wow.
So there truly is no debtor in possession. There's no debtor in this proceeding. There is none in any divorce proceeding. Even there's no allegations of debt. Because he wouldn't go along with what the judge wanted, they took away his custody of his son to try to coerce him into capitulating, and he won't do it, to his credit. The guy's got courage. So this is what's
we need more Americans like that.
Yeah, we do. This is what's going on. This is going on in all family courts. Your judges are out of control. You need to address this, and don't be afraid of them. You need to file a complaint with your inspector general's office and complain for the abuse, waste, and fraud of public funds. Public funds were not intended for this, to impose an involuntary receivership on people that simply want the court to declare the dissolution of a marriage when there's not even a disagreement as to it. When both husband and wife agree, okay, fine. If you want out, fine. That's the end of it.
Yes.
Shut up. You can't talk about the property. You can't talk about the custody. They've already decided what that is. And if you think that you don't have a custody arrangement, let me just ask you, who decided when to pick up Johnny from soccer practice? Who decided who's going to drive him to school or carpool or whatever? Who made up that? That's your custody agreement. If you're already separated and you visit each other and then you worked it out, okay, fine. If you didn't work it out, you'll work it out. It's not for the state to come involved and get involved.
I love it.
I've got a case right now that's custody. So it was boyfriend, girlfriend. They had a baby. They live apart, always have lived apart, but they had nice custody arrangement. Then she decided she wanted to take the little baby, who was 6 months old, out of the country. Well, if I'm the dad, I'd say no. But it's not for me to make a judgment on that. The fact is that they could not reach an agreement on that. Well, that doesn't give the state a compelling interest to get involved. But she went and got
Correct.
an attorney and sought custody. Well, okay, so here's what this means. There's a parental arrangement, and then there's a point, and it was working just fine until she wanted to change it. Now, I'm not blaming women. I'm just saying it just so happened she wanted to change the custody arrangement, and he didn't agree. Okay, so that's where it stops. Just like any agreement. If you can't agree on something, well, then you just stop talking about that because you can't agree on it. So no one gets to like say, okay, if you don't agree, I'll shoot you. Or if you don't agree, I'm going to kidnap your dog. You don't get to do that when we live in a modern civil society, right? So what she did is she went to an attorney to go to the court to get the court to force him to terms that she wanted. They already had an agreement, and she went to the court to change the agreement. Now, let me ask you, what contract can I get into where if I don't like it at some point, I can go to the court and force my partner into new terms?
No, you can't. It's a contract.
Right.
Yeah.
How can I do that? Imagine if I had securities. What about securities? If I have a company and I sell stock, okay, let's say I do a private placement and I do some stock, okay, and then I don't like the deal, and can I go to the court and change it and then screw all the investors? Hell
No,
no.
no, a
The
contract
court
is
has
a
no
contract.
jurisdiction. So
Correct.
why the hell is it doing it in a marriage? Why are you letting them?
Because they have completely infiltrated. They've lied to us. And it's about money
It's a
because they get
tort.
money for that.
It's a tort. It's the interference with private property rights. It's an intrusion into a private membership association, an intimate relationship in the court. The state has no compelling interest, absent allegations or evidence of abuse and or neglect, which are none of, in cases where it's, people come to me and they have that situation, I say, I can't help you, but when there's no such allegations and no such consideration, well, we can't talk about that. And so the state has no compelling interest. So just understand, family court is imposing an involuntary receivership to pillage the marital community and annihilate the family's ability to accumulate wealth. And a lot of it,
you're completely correct.
A lot of wealth comes from the accumulation of equity in the home. And some people are pretty savvy where if they get $100,000 or $250,000, or maybe they have some IRA money or something, they manage to save some cash, they can actually leverage that to become a millionaire in a few years. So imagine if the courts didn't do this on 50% divorce rate. Imagine if the courts didn't do this, okay? Imagine how many more millionaires there would be. Quite a few.
Oh yeah, but they don't want that. That's
no,
yeah,
of
they don't want
course.
that.
I mean, that's
And when the more times you spend in court, the more money they make.
Exactly. And if the more of your resources are exhausted in time. So look, this is what's going on, and you don't have to take it. There's no jurisdiction. So what creates the jurisdiction is you file a petition for dissolution of marriage or child custody, whatever. And by the way, child custody also involves property rights. So they are using receivership on child custody too. It's a hard concept to get a little bit, but
No, that's the truth.
parental rights are property rights, just like money.
That is, yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
And that's
So they're
actually really
reallocating your
important.
property rights. Okay, child custody, divorce. So, okay, when you petition the court for that, the court has jurisdiction, if it does, over that thing. So a petition for the dissolution of marriage is equitable relief. In the middle of that, you can't start a whole new proceeding involving a set of allegations that haven't been made yet. So if I want the court to conduct a receivership of any kind, I have to petition the court to conduct a receivership. That's different than asking the court for equitable relief, declaratory judgment of a dissolution of marriage. So in order to do an involuntary receivership, here's what needs to happen. The pleadings need to be amended. The complaint that was filed for the dissolution of marriage, it needs to be amended to the petition for an involuntary receivership. That's a whole new world.
That's a different, that's a whole different
in that petition, the debtor needs to be identified. The debtor or debtor in possession. It needs to be alleged whether or not it's voluntary or involuntary. The creditors have to be alleged. There have to be creditors. There have to be instruments of debt. There has to be credit agreements. There has to be perfected security interests, possibly, not always, but there has to be something that's a perfected, like a UCC1 filing, okay? There has to be a mortgage contract. There has to be a credit agreement. There has to be
Wow.
receivables. There has to be rents. There has to be a lease agreement, okay? All these debt obligations have to be in the record. And there has to be creditors. Where's that? I mean, okay, let's not confuse. If the husband and wife have a mortgage, that is not a debt that's subject to receivership, because banks don't lend to marital communities. There's no underwriting for it. They only
True.
lend to individual people.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a divorce proceeding, a mortgage is not a debt that is part of a receivership, or could be. Just understand that, because I know a lot of you are thinking, well, what about a mortgage? No, it's not part of the marital estate. Well, it is part of the marital estate, but it's not part of a divorce proceeding. It can never be. Nor
So I
can
have a
it.
question about that, because it is true that banks do only loan to people and not
Yeah,
an actual marriage. But if they loan to the people who got married together at the same time and they
that's not
both
the
are
marital
on the
community.
mortgage.
It's not the marital community. It's two people.
Okay.
That's it. Two
True, true.
individuals. Yeah, banks do not have underwriting for the marital estate.
So then
The-
what they would do, they would just do a contract or an agreement of what they're going to do with the home, like with each other. They could just do a regular contract of what we're going to do, or like, that's their decision. It's not something that the
Well,
courts
yeah, the
can
court
decide.
has no cognizance. It should have no cognizance of what's being done with the property in the marital
Yeah,
estate. And
correct.
just because someone has, well, I want to make the point, because I know some of your listeners will think, well, John says there's no debt, but there's a lot of people have mortgages. No, that's not part of the marital, it's not part of the divorce proceeding. And it would not be part of a receivership, because what's at stake here is the marital community, and the individual shouldn't be. So, okay, unless the husband or wife is named as a debtor and the pleadings have been amended and there's actual debts and creditors, okay, then that's different. But
So
then again,
but that's a whole different ball of
that's
wax
not
than
a
just,
marriage
yeah, that's
dissolution, right?
exactly.
See, you can't have
Yeah,
both. But
yeah.
what they're doing is pillaging the marital community. But the court has a mandate. You've heard this word before.
Oh
The
yeah.
court does have a mandate, and that is to preserve the status quo.
Oh yeah. That's true,
Not
which they've been
destroy
wanting
it,
to do.
not roll it over, not annihilate it, not destroy child custody and alienate your family and friends and children from the parents, and
Mm-hmm.
husband and wife against each other. But that's what they do, because courts only have jurisdiction over adversarial situations. There is no adversarial situation with a marriage. Even if there's a divorce, it's not adversarial in which the court has jurisdiction. It can only declare the dissolution of a marriage. Now, if there's abuse or neglect, we don't need family court. We have the trial court system. It issues temporary restraining orders,
That's true.
injunctions, has trials, has criminal jurisdiction. Abuse or neglect is effectively handled by our existing court system. Family court is a complete franchise. It's a complete fraud of our trial court system. It needs to be abolished.
Absolutely. Well, most of courts I think need to be abolished. They're mostly about money and money for the courts, not for the actual people.
Well, a lot of
So
times what
that's
I do,
fantastic.
if I get a chance, I will write a postnuptial agreement that excludes the court from any disputes. So what I do is I
Wow.
write in a commercial arbitration clause that precludes the court from taking jurisdiction, and the courts will uphold it. They will uphold that like a religion. So I can get
Wow.
around the trial court, but if you don't have a postnuptial agreement, you're having to fight this jurisdiction. And I'm telling you, there's a money interest here behind it that's overwhelming. You think
Yeah,
the IRS is a problem? It ain't.
that's
Family
that's what I'm
court
talking
and
about.
trial court judges are probably the worst thing in our society right now. Not even drug dealers. They're worse than drug dealers.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. But yes, and I love that when you were talking about children being property, that's what there's a whole nother language around children when they
Yeah,
go
oh
into
yeah.
court.
There is trafficking. I mean,
Mm,
sometimes, like in the one case I'm talking about, they appointed a guardian ad litem. And from the moment I told my client, I said, you call that person a child molester. This is the same type of person that shows up at Chuck E. Cheese who doesn't have any children, right? That's what
mm-hmm.
he is. He's some lawyer who's getting paid too much money to do what? Take away your custody, or what? Call the police on you if you try to visit with your child. Okay, so that's trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Right there is trafficking. When you do that and there's no there's no evidence or allegations at all of abuse or neglect, and you do it to coerce performance from another party to take his property, that's called trafficking children. The moment that guardian ad litem is trafficking. So is the point of he's trafficking. So I told my client, I said, you refer to that idiot as a child molester. And oh, you should have seen the court then. Oh, it was mayhem. They couldn't stand that. And I said, don't stop. He's a child molester. And on top of that, have your son make a report that he's molested him. Fuck him. Don't tell the truth. Lie. And turn him in for molesting your child. Let's see how he deals with that. How you can overcome that. You want to be a guardian ad litem? Not on my watch. Anything goes. You're not
Yeah,
gonna,
especially when their children are involved.
you're
That's
not going to do it. Anything goes. People, you got to take ownership of your property rights and recognize that as a parent, you have infinite property rights in the manner in which you decide to care for your child. Why do you have all the rights? Michelle,
well, they were given they were given to us by God. They weren't getting
Oh, but okay, but not disputed. But why do you have all the rights as the parent, even if you're the adopted?
because the child is your property.
No, people are not property of other people.
Well, actually, but this is what I was told in by another person that I interviewed, is that when you're talking about, because this person's child had a threat of the school going to vaccinate their child, and when they went in and said, that is my property, do not harm my property, it was a whole different ball of wax, and that's my child.
Okay, well, he didn't
Through
articulate
the
it exactly
school, that
right,
was a whole
but
different, totally different
that's
topic,
not,
but that's why I said that.
that's not exactly right. But the parental right is a right. It's unassailable by anybody unless you're abusing it, right? Unless you're hurting that child, then society has to step in. We ask it to do that. Other than that, there's no right. The reason why you have parental rights is because you have parental obligations. He who has the liability has the authority, and nobody else does. So what liability does a judge have or an attorney have to
Zero.
account for taking care of your child? None.
Zero.
So he has no authority whatsoever. I don't care what the statute says. And by the way, if you read the statutes very carefully in divorce, you'll see that it's a receivership. You're reading statutes that come right out of bankruptcy procedure. You got to figure this stuff out, guys.
Yeah,
No
especially now.
statute creates a legal duty on you to pay a debt. You cannot happen. There is no such thing as a statute that imposes a financial obligation on anybody unless you're doing some sort of, financial thing like under a license thing or whatever, or you've committed a penalty. Okay, wake up. That's what I
People
tell
are
people.
waking up. That's why they're watching this and they're watching you and they're going to
Yeah,
aceofcoins.com
I want you guys
to
to wake
check
up
you
and
guys
get
out.
angry and
And
realize
that's where we need to be.
if you went through this, I'm sorry, but you just got ransacked. You got mugged and you thought it was okay. Well, I mean, you probably didn't think it was okay. You just didn't know
You didn't
what
know.
language to use. I'm telling you what language to
Yeah.
use. It was an involuntary receivership and your marital community was pillaged by the state for its ulterior purposes. And whoever's, let me tell you something, super rich people that you'll probably never hear of in the news, those people get divorced. Those people die. They administer their estates in their living rooms. Those people administer their estates, not in probate court.
Yeah.
That's where they put you. They want you there so they could take your stuff.
Yeah.
They administer their estates within their families in their own living rooms. They administer their own divorce proceedings in their own households.
Yep.
This court system is for chumps. Realize that. We have to take responsibility for the property rights we have that we're using to live our lives and enjoy our lives and to bring in the next generation and teach them. And we're getting our asses kicked because we don't understand what's happening to us like children. And I'm trying to tell you, here's what's happening to you. I'm giving you the language. Okay. I'm showing you how to beat them. Make a claim against them. Yeah. Make a claim they're personally liable. You can waive the judge's immunity by simply sending a notice in. There's different offices. You simply send a notice in and you get waiver. You get waiver of immunity, guys. It's that simple.
That is so true. The paper trail, the
It's not
paperwork is where it's
complicated.
at. You don't
Yeah.
actually have to do the whole court procedure. This paperwork is where it's at. I love that you
You
said that.
file a complaint against that judge for judicial misconduct. Go look up your rules for what constitutes misconduct for a judge. It's very important. You'll find it. And then you send a notice into the right offices, like the chief judge and somebody else, or usually the Supreme Court or somebody, and accuse them of judicial misconduct. But remember, it has to be misconduct. It can't be the legal issues of the case. On the legal issues, you appeal the judge's orders and you sue him for the tort of intruding upon your private property. It's called trespass. There's a
This is
lawsuit
great.
for
This is
trespass.
really great. I hope you guys, if you're in family court, I hope you're taking notes
I hope you're not
or
there, but this
check,
is what you
go to
do.
aceofcoins.com and have John help you out, because everything he's saying is absolutely true. The courts are there for one thing. It's called money.
That's
And
it.
the
Yeah.
longer you go to court, the more times you go, the more money they make. And this is brilliant.
Well,
Anything else you want to share,
unfortunately,
John, before we close it out?
no, I appreciate being able to explain this to people, and I hope this helps in your situation. I'm not trying to take on more cases. I mean, I'm willing to help people, but I have a video series on this, and that alone is not going to help you. But what I want to do is give you the language and the
Yeah.
understanding of what's going on, what's happening to you, and there is a remedy. You can deal with it. There are many things you can do in that situation. So
Yes, and that's just it. And I love that you said this guy's brave. It's like if
yeah,
everybody was like
yeah,
that, they wouldn't be called brave.
that's
It'd be called
right.
normal. It'd
You
be called,
tell
this
that
is just
judge
what
to
people
stick it.
do. And
Right.
that's where we need to get to. The brave needs to become what's the new normal. And and that's what I just hold for this nation. And so much mahalo for you for figuring this out and learning this and helping people see what the heck is truly going on, because this is like it's a magic trick. It's like what can we get away with? How can we fool these
Yeah,
people?
they are.
And that's what this is.
Well, thanks, Michelle. I
So thank you for
appreciate
that.
the discussion.
Awesome. Well, let's do a quick prayer then and get you on your way. I know you have to get going. Great Spirit, infinite intelligence of all things. Wow, it's such an exciting time. And we just give so much gratitude for John and his business, Ace of Coins, that are supporting so many people that just need a little bit more extra help to understand the wool that has been pulled over our eyes. But this is totally being exposed right now. Everything around the planet, especially the court systems and how they've harmed people and how they're in it for just the money. But this is being exposed. And we just know that anybody who is hearing this message and who feels that they want some more information, just check out aceofcoins.com, and also just to trust that they're being guided to what it is that they need to do for themselves to find peace in their life, to live a life of love and abundance and of harmony and of just being pono, which is just being okay and good and right with themselves, with their family, with their friends, and with their neighbors, and with strangers around. Because people truly do love each other, and we all want peace for not just ourselves, but for other people. And we call that forth now. And we call the absolute evilness that is the court systems, which it cares more about money than it does about the people that walk through their doors. We just know that the truth is unfolding, and they have no more power. They don't have any power. They never had power over living men and living women that are given rights by you, Great Spirit. We just know that that is done, and we get to watch as things unfold that make this world a beautiful, amazing place to live with all people around the world. And so it is. Mahalo so much, John. Thank
All
you so
right.
much for joining.
Thank you again,
I'll talk
Michelle.
with you soon.
Enjoy
Aloha.
your day. Alrighty. Bye-bye.